All right, this is it. This is the last one here in this office, YouTube studio, edit suite, whatever you want to call it. And that's because I'm actually moving from here in Colorado all the way to New York, 2,000 miles away. And I wanted to take a second to give you kind of a behind the scenes look at the space that I've done all these tutorials in for DaVinci Resolve, and also all the gear that I use to make it happen. Okay, just word of warning, this video is going to be a little bit longer than normal because this is just raw and real. This is me, Chadwick, Creative Video Tips. Channel's here to help you create videos and make a difference and stand out, but there's going to be chapter markers down below that you can scrub through if you're interested about any specific gear that I use. So we're here in my basement here for the very last Saturday before we move. You see we've got TV boxes and whatnot. But this room was originally built as an edit suite that I would bring clients in. They would sit behind me on this couch over here and watch me edit and basically say, hey, I want to move this frame this way or that way. So that's kind of how it works after you do initial cuts sort of in the commercial editing world. Now, if you look over here, there used to be a TV, right? So you may have seen in some of my previous videos, I use about a 40 or 42 inch TV. It's a pretty inexpensive TCL TV that you can buy from Amazon for maybe, I don't know, 250, 300 bucks. And I don't use it for the color accuracy. I use it so that I can match eye lines between cuts. So if you're cutting dialogue between two people, you want to make sure that their eye line is working. So up there on the wall, I would have had a TV. It's down already, it's packed in the garage. And then I would do two speakers on the side. Now the speakers I use are KRK Rokits 5-inch speakers. And I'm not gonna probably recommend those because I don't love them. I've just had them for like a decade and that's what I got at first. So if you have suggestions on the best speaker to use for your edit suite, I would really love to know that down in the comments because one of the biggest things I'm into lately is getting better audio. So my desk setup right now is a complete mess. And the reason is, this is what a creative space looks like. There are so many YouTube videos you see out there that basically, they're so polished and clean, and that's how I like my tutorials. But I wanted to give you the reality of this is how it actually is for me most of the time. So we're going to start from left to right, go across the desk, and what I'm using for monitors, just for my computer monitors, I'm a Mac guy, and these are LG 24-inch Thunderbolt displays. So this is basically, I think this is the best value that you can get for a really high quality monitor. You know, it's 4K and it works over Thunderbolt. So what that means is I use the M1 Max Macbook Pro, which means I'm actually just plugging in, I only need a single Thunderbolt cable, Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4 cable that goes into here, which is actually going into a hub OWC Thunderbolt Dock connector. And this is amazing. What this thing does is it basically gives me several more USB ports, but it also gives me more Thunderbolt ports. And then from here, I'm sending this to both of these monitors. So technically, I'm actually, a lot of times I'm running 4 monitors because I've got these 3 and a TV, which is great to speed up productivity because you've got room on every different display to, you know, to have different windows, so you're not having to constantly switch different spaces. The other thing that I really love about this 24-inch LG monitor is that it has Thunderbolt on the back of them. So on the back of the monitor, there's 2 Thunderbolts and there's 3 of these USB-C ports. It's like a Thunderbolt hub, so I can add an extra Thunderbolt hard drive and that sort of thing. So anyways, that is the monitors. I have them attached on arms, and this is something I've found as someone who's creating YouTube videos and just wants the flexibility of moving monitors around. That's super helpful. This piece of gear right here is called the Art Accessories Pro Split. And I gotta let you know, I learned about this piece of gear from Javier Mercedes, who has the most amazing Adobe Premiere tutorial channel. So what's so cool about this device is it's one microphone going in, and then you get basically that same microphone can go out to 2 different places. So one of them I have going to a Mix Pre 6 from Sound Devices, which goes to my camera, and then the other one is actually going into the computer over this guy over here, which is a Focusrite Scarlett Solo, probably 2nd generation. I've had this one for probably a decade or so. It's an interface, and what that does is over the USB connection, it plugs into the computer and it lets me record my voice that's also going to the camera, into the computer, into my screen recording software, which is ScreenFlow. We'll get to all my favorite little apps that a lot of people don't know that I use to make videos in a later part here. So this is a great, super high quality recorder. It does 32-bit float, which should make it so you never clip. But more importantly, it has great preamps and I can actually plug in a ton of microphones for production work that I might be doing. The light above here is a Godox SL150 Mark II, and what's cool about this light is it has a remote. So I like lights that have remotes, like physical ones, and I don't have to use an app. So that's the SL150 Mark II. This guy right here is another light that I have in the background. You've probably seen in a lot of videos. Little switch right here. This is a Wyze floor lamp. Love it. It basically it connects to the Wi-Fi, and so I can have it scheduled to turn on in the mornings. And that's nice for me because I come down here at 4 in the morning almost every day to research and continue to learn tricks in DaVinci Resolve so I can teach them to you here. All right, as we keep going across, this is the fancy iPad 6th generation iPad. And why this is interesting and why this is here is because I use an app on this guy, because one of the little secrets to a lot of my YouTube videos is I'm actually reading off of a teleprompter most of the time. That's why this video is probably way more long-winded and has way too many words in it. I want to make sure my tutorials are to the point as possible, so I read from a teleprompter script that I very carefully write. So the app I use on the iPad, it's called Promptsmart Pro, and you can even see here's part of one of my videos in the past. You hit play here, and I can control this with my phone, and it's upside down right now. But what's so cool about this app is it listens to my voice, so it moves as I'm talking. So the way this works with my teleprompter, which is the magic sauce behind the iPad, is we look over here, and you can see that's generally where the camera sits. So right now, my son, Braxton, he's filming with the Sony FX3, and that's normally behind there, but the iPad would sit generally right back up in here, right? And so I'm able to just sit down here in my chair while that thing is listening to me. So like if I get push play right now, it's gonna listen to me. 96, 3 timeline tips in 3 minutes. Premiere Pro lets you see a full screen timeline by tapping the tilde key on your keyboard, and you get the idea. So it's gonna move with me as I'm talking. So that is super helpful. Camera sits behind there, and the way teleprompters work is you have no idea that I'm actually reading words when it looks like I'm looking at you. It's not being disingenuous, it's just a way for me to be more concise. So I've been testing and playing with a lot of different microphones lately. The microphone I love right now the most is this one. This is the Octava MK012. A lot of people don't know about these types of mics, especially in YouTube space, but this is called a small diaphragm pencil condenser mic. And this is actually better than shotgun mics for smaller spaces most of the time. And the reason why is because it's like a shotgun as far as the capsule on it. It's a small diaphragm condenser, but there's no interference tube on it. And so what happens is you don't get these weird phasing issues that happen in small rooms like this one, with your voice bouncing back off and getting canceled because the microphone thinks it's other noise, right? So you lose frequencies that way, and so this avoids that. And I just think it sounds good, and it's different. And that's one of the things about this channel, is to create videos that make a difference and stand out. And one way to stand out is if you're using something that someone else isn't using. So I like this microphone. I think it sounds great. It's probably around $300-ish. Anyways, at the end of this video, I'm gonna put a slide that talks about all the equipment that I'm using, and also put links in the description if you want to use those affiliates. It helps support the channel a little bit. But honestly, I just want to show you what I use to see if it might be of interest to you. So it's connected over the Rode PSA-1, which is which basically was meant to be connected to the desk for, you know, some sort of a studio mic. The thing I like about this is it just gets it off the desk, so any vibrations from you hitting the desk never end up in the audio. It's totally detached, as well as the camera back there. It's actually on a tripod. It's not attached to the desk at all. So that means if I bump the desk, you know, and do this kind of thing, there's a lot of shake. But if you detach it from the desk, you don't have any of that wobble in your footage, and so that's super helpful. So this guy right here is the Mackie Big Knob. So Big Knob's been around, I've used them for 15 years or so, but this one is just a passive one. And the reason I have this is to control my speaker volume independently of my headphones. So I can turn my speakers down and basically just control the monitor here from my headphones. So as I said before, I'm really getting into audio lately. The headphones I'm using are these guys. They are the Behringer DT900 Pro X. So I learned about these from the master of all audio on YouTube, Curtis Judd, and I've been loving them ever since. So they're not super inexpensive, but so much better than Sony MDR 7506s that I've talked about before and still use for shooting. And they're also super comfortable. They have this like soft velour pad on them, which I love. And these are open back, by the way, too. So this is the best way really to mix if you don't have great, speakers. Okay, another thing I want to mention really quick while we're talking about audio is I don't subscribe to the theory that you should get inexpensive XLR cables. You don't have to get super expensive Mogami cables, but I've gone through a lot of them and I've had people complain about hiss and all kinds of interference on this channel. So I recommend, they're called Canare cables. These are super, super high quality, great XLR cables with good Neutrik connectors that are not going to get stuck in anything. So that's what I use for that. I have a whole slew of microphones that we'll get to in a minute. This is a really great $40 option. This is the Shure SM48, not the 58 that everyone knows that's $100. This is only 40 bucks, but it's just as good as the 58 in my opinion if you're working in a room that's not treated at all. So we're gonna keep going across here. I use this little Anchor, basically it's a magnetic deal, so I can plop my phone on there while I'm working, right? And it's gonna charge it. And I also use this when I'm controlling the Bluetooth on the iPad over there. So basically I can start and stop in that with just touching on here and reset. This guy right here, which I'm for sure gonna do a video on because as I make this move to New York, I'm gonna be losing access to my monitors. I'm just gonna have my laptop to do tutorials. And this little guy right here is an HDMI plug, and it's a dummy plug for headless monitoring if you have like a Mac Mini and you wanted to remote access it. But what I'm gonna use it for, it's so cool. If I plug this in over here to the HDMI slot on the computer, it basically changes this from a 16:10 display to 16:9, which is perfect for screen recordings. So if you do screen recordings with a MacBook Pro, I highly suggest you get one of these little HDMI dongles. They're like $10. And then you don't have to run any special software to get a 16:9 frame on any sort of Apple laptop, which is not 16:9 by default. The Stream Deck, I mostly just use it to launch apps. You can use this for, using printer points in DaVinci Resolve to change these different colors with the plus or minus. So the Stream Deck's a great way to just add extra shortcuts, and I'm all about shortcuts here on this channel. So the keyboard I'm using right now that I love is the Keychron C2, which is really an inexpensive keyboard, but it has mechanical, you can hear that, mechanical switches. I think they're brown switches that are on this one. I just like that tactile feel. And then I also use this guy right here. So if you're unfamiliar with it, I've got a lot of great videos and tutorials on the channel for it. This is the Blackmagic Design Speed Editor for DaVinci Resolve. So what this lets me do, you can see if I scroll up there on the timeline, rather than having to navigate with JKL, you can use this scroll wheel right here and navigate really quickly, and you can do all kinds of trims and navigate between, source and timeline. You can do your whole edit mostly with this. It's really designed to work over on the cut page and work there, but it does work on the edit page too. It's just some of the functionality is a little bit different. So if you want to learn more about the speed editor, I'll probably do like a card somewhere on screen right now so you can check out my playlist on the speed editor. But I love it, and it also comes with a studio version of DaVinci Resolve, which is worth it because that alone is normally 300 bucks. And I think the device right now sells for about $400. And then next thing over here is the best mouse ever, which is the Logitech MX3 Master Mouse. And I've got the Mac version, which just means there's not an extra dongle for it. It works over Bluetooth. And I just love this thing. There's a few buttons here that you can program to do different things like trim start, trim end, to do some extra little shortcuts. But the thing I really love about it the most, it's just comfortable. It looks dumb, it looks too fancy, but the way your hand just fits on that thing, it's so nice. The mouse pad I use a bunch of different ones, but I definitely suggest you get some sort of a desk pad. And I like this one in particular, and I'm using this one lately, is because it's white. It actually bounces light from my lights back up to my face. So the Godox SL150 II is bouncing off here, comes back to my face, and it fills it in a little bit. And then I don't have to worry about the background being so bright. Any sort of desk pad's nice, but the brighter they are, or if you have a white desk, that is actually really nice to sort of light up your face if you're doing talking head over a table. Coffee. Yeti coffee mugs are great when you're editing because they actually keep the coffee hot for a long time. I've seen some people have like coffee heaters on their desk, and I'm like, you don't really need that. That's just another thing to plug in and deal with. You just get something that's insulated like this and you're good to go. So M1 Max MacBook Pro, did a whole video on it. I love the computer. I've had it, I think I got it in November of last year. I upgraded from a 2015 iMac. So it was kind of night and day difference having a 6 or 7 year newer computer. I use it on top of a stand on here, just a basic stand. I guess it's called the best stand. If you use the DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor, it fits this under here really nicely, right? So that gets that out of the way when I need that out of the way. And for my other cameras that I use all the time is so that's the Sony FX3, the image you're looking at right now, but I also have the Sony A7IV because I just love Sony, and used to have the A7 III. This is so much like the FX3. So I got this because it's a little bit better for photo. It's got, you know, bigger megapixel and it matches really good to that camera. And then over here, this is like the classic, right? This is the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, which just got an update yesterday with added support for gyro image stabilization, which I'm super excited to do a video and test. I don't use this as often as the Sonys just because a lot of the stuff I'm shooting is me myself pushing record or with the app or one of these remotes, an infrared remote, and it gets to be a little bit much to manually focus this, which you can with an iPhone app. Another thing I love about these Sony cameras that a lot of YouTubers don't really explain in the filmmaker space is they say, just crank the settings up, use 100 megabits, 200 megabits, get the best quality. Well, if you're making content every week, that makes giant file sizes. And so on this camera, I use 12:1 B-RAW compression, which is the smallest, and it's great. And because it's raw, I can change white balance, which I really like. But on this one, it has an option in here for HEVC, which is H.265 at 30 megabits per second. So that's actually the lowest, and that's what you're watching right now, is 30 megabits per second, which means I can record for a super long time and not have massive file sizes. Basically, when I started doing YouTube videos and tutorials, a project might be 100, 200 gigs. Now they're 10 or 20 gigs for a whole project's worth of media. So 30 megabits per second is what I use on this, and I toy between using S-Log and Cinetone, and I think right now I'm filming just in standard without the picture profile on because this is raw and real. This guy right here is my favorite USB-C hub. What's so special about this guy versus one $10 one you might get off Amazon because it has a lot of reviews is it actually has the 10G, this 10 gigabits. It basically has the full throughput of these hard drives when you plug them in, and you have 3 of them here on a bus. So a lot of times if you use a less expensive one, you're gonna go down to a USB 3.1 spec. Basically makes this T7, this is a Samsung T7, which I do recommend these drives, as well as SanDisk Extreme Pros. This lets you get all the goodness from that drive. And you can plug 3 of them in here, and you can actually charge something else over this other port when it's plugged into one of the ports on the side of the computer. This case right here will fit several of the Samsung T7s. I've got a T5 that I use to record directly from the Blackmagic Pocket 4K when I need that, and then here's like a SanDisk Extreme Pro, what they look like. So these are supposedly a little bit more rugged. They're both within a few megabits per second, just as fast as each other, so whatever you prefer. I like the look and feel of those better, but these are great too. This is another Thunderbolt item. This is the Ultrastudio Monitor 3G. So this is the best way to get picture out to any sort of reference display, a calibrated monitor, because it takes Thunderbolt in, Thunderbolt 3 in, and you have an HDMI out and an SDI out. So if you have a professional Flanders monitor, this is the way to do it. Now this guy is only around $100, but it's also only 1080p. Just know that going in. So you'll change to make sure your output is 1080p from your timeline. So that's under here. You can also see, if you look underneath here, I try to do cable management, but this is the honest truth of like what it is like to be a creative person. Like, you just need cables to go places, and it just gets messy. This is this is the life and world that I live in. So I've got this little cable tray here. I use these Falcons that I screw into the bottom of the desk. So I have tons of power underneath the desk, which is super helpful. If you're interested in how I set this up in New York, let me know, and I'll do a specific tidied up version of cables, which of course are gonna get messed up again before you know it. While we're down here, I wanna show you the Ikea Bekant desk, which is what I'm using right here. It's blue, it's awesome. And it's actually, I don't think they make it anymore. So I'm taking this with me. I'm gonna baby it as it gets loaded into storage containers. But the thing I love about this desk is down here. Check this out. The desk is on wheels. This is one of the best things I ever did because I have the camera on the other side of the desk. These wheels, I found the right size. They just screw into the normal base that's on the bottom of these Ikea Bekant desk legs. So I'll put those in there because it took me a few tries to get the right threading and size. But now check this out. With just a single, like barely moving my arm, I can move the desk to get a camera behind it. I can reposition it however I need to without having to worry about like, well, just get wheels and you'll see what the difference is. You're gonna love it. Okay, so that's kind of the desk setup. I wanna show you a little bit of, like, you're probably wondering what the heck is this blanket doing behind me? Well, one little secret pro tip for better audio is to try to treat your room as best as possible. And so the point of this blanket is to try to make the room feel a little bit more closed and have the waveforms from my mouth bounce around less. So that's what this is. I'm gonna go ahead and take it down because, well, I'm moving and it's gonna have to come down. And this will also give you a chance to see a pretty cool stand that I've had for a long time. And I actually will use a lot of times to boom an overhead microphone. This stand is really cool. It's a Manfrotto and it's called the 420B, but it's I think they call them combi stands or whatever. But what's cool about it is that it's an all-in-one like light stand, but also can boom out overhead. It doesn't support a ton of weight, but it is enough for a microphone or like a lightweight light. Like one of the small lights I use, and these are just like from Home Depot. You can get these little A clamps. They're super, super useful. You can use them to clip any sort of reflectors or boards wherever you need, or hang blankets. It gets down, you know, pretty small, and then you don't have to carry like a boom pole with a boom pole holder and all that when you go on shoots. So this is an extremely low ceiling room. So I don't know, yeah, I can't quite close it without hitting the ceiling, but it just sucks back down into there, and then, you know, it's a light stand. The legs go up, and it's pretty small. So this is gonna go out here. And now you can see this light right here, the Godox SL150 Mark II, has diffusion in front of it. This is the Aperture Light Dome Mini 2. So I actually have one that's more like the size of the full-size light dome. It's sitting in storage. But for a small studio space, this is as big as you want. Those other ones are way too big. So I wouldn't even bother with those. This does soften it up. It's not as great as the bigger ones, but you do what you can in a smaller space. Now, this is all supported with a C-stand, which is the B&H C-stand brand. It's called Impact. So I have another Impact C-stand that's over there, and sometimes instead of using it for another light, I'll use that to do a camera overhead, looking straight down at like a speed editor to do tutorials with that, and then it keeps the camera super rock steady. So the other thing you can do with these is they have a removable base down there. This is the turtle base, and that's what I always recommend people get, is this whole pole comes out. You can put this tool that a lot of people don't know about that aren't gaffers, or this is actually called a butt plug. No, for real, like that's the name. I think there's another name for it, but this is what everyone calls it. So basically what this does is this goes down into it, and then you can put a light on top of here and have it really close to the ground. Speaking of lights low to the ground, you'll probably see over here, we have what's called a background light. So it's brighter in the middle, and I do this to make sure I can draw your attention when I'm sitting over here looking at this camera at the teleprompter. The brightest spot is actually right behind me, and it creates separation. This is a quasar tube that's sitting back there, okay? So, but the cool thing is, as far as getting, you know, cameras or lights down low, is this is like, this is a Manfrotto stand. I'll put a link to, but it's what they call like their base stand. So it's basically, it gets really, really tiny, and it gets really low to the ground, and it costs like 10 bucks. This is like a steal. And it's connected with a Smallrig little clamp right here, because these quasar tubes don't come with anything, but they're amazing because they're super inexpensive and good quality light. Like super soft, it's daylight balanced. You can get them in 2-foot lengths, which is what this one is, and they also come in 4-foot lengths. But then I have this connected to a Wyze plug. So if I come in the morning at 4 a.m., this light is already automatically on because it's connected to a schedule from the Wyze app. And I can also control it here with my phone, which with just turning on and off. and it basically switches the switch that's on the plug that's on the floor from the Wyze plug. Now up there, that's a Wyze bulb. It's a color bulb, so I can change it to any color I want. But what I found, if I change it to specific colors, like if I change it to blue, it creates a flicker in the image, and I don't want that. So I usually just leave this to like a normal daylight color temperature, and I can turn this off as well from the app, just like so. So what we have right here is, this is actually called a book light. So I'm shooting the light into here, it's bouncing off of here, and then it's gonna come back through this. So it's almost like it gets double diffused. And this is really a great way to get like super duper soft light that looks really nice. So you're bouncing it twice. It's not just getting diffused by going through here directly, it's bouncing off the whiteboard, coming through here. Love it. Takes up a little space though. The light I'm using is the these are brand new, they're super tiny and really amazing and affordable. It's the Amaran 60D, which works over the same Bluetooth app, the Sidus Link, that the Aperture MC, that little guy over there, does. So I can control them both with my phone at the same time. And it's super lightweight and can run off a battery. So anyways, that is on a little tiny stand. These little guys are the Manfrotto 5001B. Had these for a long time for photography. It's a good idea to always get a reflector holder if you have the opportunity. Basically what this is, it has like a little piece right there that can hold the reflector from a light stand. Not a whole lot to it, and it just goes on like that. Super nice little gadget, little gizmo. So this guy folds down really small and can fit into any tiny, you know, backpack or suitcase and that sort of thing. So you can see it reverses the legs up. So I don't know how long that is. It's probably, I don't know, 18 inches or something. So this board right here I made from basically $10 of material of insulation at Home Depot. It's two of them that are like an inch or so thick, and then they're just gaff taped around the edges. And it makes the best 4x4 balance you can buy for your money. So like 10 bucks, you get like an 8x4 sheet and cut it in half, you can do the math. So this duck clamp right here, it basically holds that board. It's made by Impact. It fits right into these knuckles here, and this stand, you can hear, super, super sturdy and robust. This is also Impact, it's the B&H brand. It's a little less expensive than Matthews or Avengers, and for me, for someone that's actually not carrying this out to locations, this is gonna last me for decades. The thing about that floors plug and how that works, these guys just sort of unscrew from here and come straight out. So there's other C stands, you'll see, if they're not called turtle bases, they don't have this pole that comes out. This is great so that you can mount lights down low, but it's also great if you don't have a large vehicle, because this actually makes the stand much smaller and portable to fit into like a small sedan. So that's something to think about when you buy C stands. And now to collapse the bottom part, it's pretty cool. It just has this little unlocking thing you lift up, and then it snaps together so that those legs can lay flat in a vehicle. And now in the background of the videos, I have these two IKEA shelves that actually do hold a lot of stuff. They're not just there for looks. So let me show you what I keep in them. You can see on top here, I just got another new microphone that I'm testing. This is actually the most affordable dynamic handheld microphone you can get. It's the Behringer XM8500. It's an XLR mic. It's a lot like the Shure SM48, but get this microphone, it sounds very similar to an SM58 or an SM7B, which I know you've probably seen on YouTube. This microphone is like 20 to 25 bucks. And I can't wait for you to hear how good it sounds, because it's really, really great. So this is 20 to 25 bucks. This microphone over here, SM48, like $40. So this is double the cost. And these are still like a fraction of, you're talking like $400 for the SM7Bs that everyone's using. And you know what? I don't know how many people can tell the difference. This is a really cool tool from Smallrig. If you take tripod plates on and off, this is really good to have with you. It's basically, you know, it fits into the bottom of these tripod plates so that you don't have to pull your keys out and destroy them, which I've done before. USB hubs are super helpful if you make a lot of videos, because you have a lot of hard drives, so you need to plug them in. So I've got plenty of these. This is a Hutu USB 3 hub that I used, and I've had several. This drawer right here holds my lenses. I don't have a ton of lenses. I have this one from Mackie. They sent me this to do a review on. It's a 50mm 1.2 aperture, I believe. It's an awesome lens. It's manual, so it doesn't get a whole lot of use on the channel because I love autofocus. On the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, it's micro Four Thirds, so the lenses are super, super tiny. This one is a 25 millimeter, 1.8, I believe, but it's basically their nifty 50, and so you can get that blurry background look. So this one is another one for the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, 4K. It's the Lumix 35 to 100 with a stabilization, which is great. So this basically is like a 70 to 200 on a full frame equivalent. So anytime I need to shoot something that's super far away, I'll put this on the Pocket 4K and be good to go. I shot a lot of my son's robotics from a distance with that lens this year. Right now we're shooting with the 16 to 35 G Master at 2.8, which is awesome. It's not cheap, but it's awesome. The A7IV has a 24 to 70, which is also great. So normally on my videos on here, I'm gonna shoot with either this one or that one at around 28 millimeters or so. This guy's got the 12 to 35 Lumix, which is pretty much always lives on the Pocket 4K, unless I need the shallow depth of field or the long reach of the 35 to 100. This is my audio drawer. That's a complete mess. In here, we've got a Klark Teknik mic booster, and which we're gonna do a video on at some point, and the Cloud Lifter mic booster. What these do is they amplify the signal of a dynamic microphone using phantom power. So it takes a microphone like this and it makes it louder, or the Shure SM7B or any other dynamic microphone that needs extra gain, so that you don't have to push the preamp of your interface or your recording device much harder. It's questionable whether or not these are super needed and helpful, but I've been using them for a long time. They've been helpful for me. The Cloud Lifter is like over $100, and this Klark Teknik thing is like, I don't know, $20 or $30, the CT1. So, and I can't tell the difference between quality. They're both great, so I'd probably go with this. I got the Deity D4 Duo microphone, which has a front capsule and a back capsule. If you vlog at all, this is really cool invention because you can capture sound in front of you and behind. So if you're filming someone and want to talk, it gets your voice from both sides. This just doesn't even need a battery either. So that's the other thing I love about it. You just plug it in, you don't have to charge anything. And then this is the Rode Pod mic, which was the main microphone on this channel for a very long time until I started exploring other ones. So this is also a dynamic mic. And then this cover here, I learned about from Tom Buck, who has super awesome microphone related videos. Basically, I learned from him that there's a store called something reporterstore.com, where you can get all kinds of colored covers for your pod mic or Shure SM7Bs if you're into adding a little more color. The other microphone that's in here that I would never recommend you get is the Sony ECM XM1. This is basically it's an XLR microphone that's meant to be an on-camera shotgun for the Sony FX3. It's been around forever. It sounds terrible. There is so much noise in it. I don't know if I just got a bad one, but it's no good. No bueno. And if you've done video for a while, you probably also know about the Rode Videomic Pro, which runs off a battery. And that's also sort of a no-go for me now because I want to carry around 9 volts. Inside this little bag is my lavalier kit. So if I'm gonna do something on location, you're gonna need some stuff. So get a little baggie like this, get fresh scissors, get some moleskin. You can wrap a lavalier and basically take care of all kinds of wind noise. So build yourself a little kit like this. One thing I love to do is to hook the lavalier onto a safety pin, which then can go onto anyone's t-shirt. If they're running around and sweating, it's not gonna fall off. The other thing you wanna make sure is you have some medical tape, so you can also mount a lavalier directly to someone's chest or to do strain relief. So the lavalier that I'm actually wearing right now and you're listening to is the Rode Lavalier 2, which is pinned up right here on my shirt. It's kind of nice and neat. It's not hidden because, I mean, this is behind the scenes, it doesn't matter. But you see the wire kind of goes away, right? And it comes down my shirt, and it comes down here into my pocket where the transmitter is for the Sennheiser AVX, right? You're like, how does that work? Where's the wire going? Well, if you have Carhartt shirts that have pockets, which are super popular, and one of my favorite shirts because I can throw stuff in it, you can actually cut a hole, which is what I do. On the back side of the pocket of this, I cut a tiny hole and the wire runs through the hole so that the microphone doesn't have to live up here. So a lot of times you'll see people wear lavalier mics and they're up here. They don't sound nearly as good as if they're down here by your chest area. And when you have a t-shirt on, you don't have much to work with or clip. So you can easily hide the mic if you put it down in there, and that's what I would normally do. But because this is behind the scenes, you get to see it. But the wire runs through a hole in the shirt, straight down. And then the other thing with these wireless units, if you're able to, put the transmitter on the front of them if you're filming the front side, because once you put them behind, especially things like these guys, the Rode Wireless Go 2s, or I've tested some other ones in the past, if they don't have direct line of sight, they don't have nearly as much range and strength. This is a Rugged, which I think might also be a B&H brand, but this is actually holding all my lavaliers when I go out on locations. And what this is, you can probably tell, it's a lens filter case, but I use it to lightly coil all my lav mics. So I can easily have 4 lav mics that are great quality that just bundle up really nicely into here, which is great. You know, it keeps them ready to go, not getting tangled between each other. That's why I love these little nets. And this thing right here is so cool. What this does is called the mic drop. So if you're micing someone up, you put this over the end of the cable, and then you can take this guy, right? Do this over the back, and it just goes right through their shirt. And you don't have to be super close and fishing if they're wearing a tight shirt. This mic drop does the trick. But it's a weight that you can put on there that's not too heavy, that hurts the strain of the wire, but it's an easier way to get your microphone fed through into someone else. And then to put these away, you just do the over-under technique like you would for any other cable. And you can get them tucked back up into the lens filter case, which is actually a lavalier case. Backpack here is the Peter McKinnon backpack, whatchamacallit, the everyday one. It has a nice spot up here, which you can throw a camera in the top part. You can, you know, change this shelf system so that it is bigger or smaller. You can watch another video on that at another time. I've got a Nintendo Switch controller, which is super important for our trip across the country, right, Braxton?
Yep.
These guys are pretty cool. This cam link is basically USB on one end and then HDMI on the other. So you could record with a high-end camera and use it as your webcam, like a Sony FX3, A7IV, that kind of thing. It just plugs in USB and then HDMI to the other end. This is a great filter, by the way. If you need to knock your shutter speed down outside, this is the, again, Peter McKinnon, not sponsored, hashtag, the Peter McKinnon variable ND filter, which you can put in front of your lens to just darken it outside. I don't love them because they get rid of all the reflections and, you know, the crispness of an image that you get by putting a polarizer on, but it does help knock down the overall brightness of the scene, so you can drop your shutter speed and have a wide open aperture. Next one down, some old keyboards. This is another good mechanical keyboard. It's the Logitech G910, I believe. If you want something that has more extra customizable keys and is also mechanical, this one's good. I like the Keychron more now. I think for me, it fits my fingers better. These are a little bit small and they have grooves. So we've got other mice and stuff in here that are great. This mouse right here, I've done a review on this one. This is an MMO gaming mouse that works with Logitech. And so you can program all these side buttons to do different things in DaVinci Resolve. So that's kind of handy. A lot of keyboard cover skins and stuff, KB covers. These are nice because they teach you keyboard shortcuts. So this just actually sits right on top, like that guy right there. And now if I spill my coffee or splatter, it doesn't get on there. But it's got all the keyboard shortcuts you need. And then the other big input device that hasn't actually been used by me in a few months, because it's been in the bottom here, is a Wacom Intuos tablet. So those are super helpful when you're doing rotoscope, when you're painting, or doing some Photoshop work where you need brushes. It gives you control by using a pen. These are nice. They print out like white tape. You can type it in. This is the one I've got. It's made by Brother. They take these little cartridges that are inside of here. If I open this up, it looks like an old cassette, which is kind of cool. If you do much audio stuff ever, you're probably going to need some capacitors and a soldering iron. And so this is my little soldering iron kit with some rosin core right there. So don't use that very often, but I do love having it when I need it. Right here, we have one of my favorite new things in the world this year. This is the Blackmagic Design Cloud Pod. And what this little thing does is it connects to my 10 gigabit network, and it basically lets me turn 2 of those like Samsung T7s, those 2 small SSDs, into network attached storage automatically. and it does all the cloud syncing to Dropbox and hopefully soon Google Drive, so I can share projects to anyone else in the world. That is connected to this guy, which is actually the adapter so that I can use a Thunderbolt port on my computer on one end and have 10 gigabit speeds on the other. So the laptops, they don't have 10 gigabit ports built in for 10 gigabit Ethernet. That's what this OWC box does here. Western Digital actually has 18 terabyte hard drives now. So that's what I'm starting to use, are these MyBook 18 terabyte drives, because it's, for the price per gig, it's pretty great. Up there I've got XLR cables. Again, I've talked about Canare cables are the way to go. You can get different colors of them. I've got different chargers for batteries. This Watson one right here, this guy right here is great because you can take off these plates. So if you have different types of cameras, you can get different plates to match the specific camera battery type, and you can charge multiples at once, and it also has a USB output there to charge other things. Okay, so here in my closet, which is could be a bedroom closet, but I actually have all these hard drives down here. If you look down here, you can see it. These are a lot of 8 terabyte Western Digitals. There's an old Drobo there, RIP Drobo. I guess they're out of business, this guy right here. So that was basically 4 hard drives inside of one unit. And then right here is the Ubiquiti 10 gigabit Ethernet switch that I've talked about before. It's amazing. This works great with the CloudPod stuff from DaVinci Resolve. Everyday backpack from Peak Design. Another really cool backpack if you want something that looks a little bit more professional, and it's not leather, but it is weather resistant. And this is my other backpack. So I actually have 3 backpacks. I don't use these other 2 as often, but this is the F-Stop Loca bag, I think is the name of it. This thing is amazing. So this is like having multiple Pelicans with you. I have a water bladder that's inside of it, so I can be drinking while I'm out shooting on long shoots. So this actually fits 2 big bodies, camera bodies, and a ton of lenses, audio, all that in there. It's got the hip support. So we took this to Yosemite. I used it in Mexico City not that long ago, and really like this backpack. It's the F-Stop Loca. If you want to know more about that, let me know. I'll do a whole video on it. Super quickly, I'm going to go over all the software apps that I love to use, besides, obviously, I'm using here DaVinci Resolve. Final Cut Pro is still on my computer. It gets used from time to time, especially if it's something I'm going to be sharing with someone else that is a Final Cut Pro person, Final Cut Pro user. I've also got Lightroom Classic. Is how I do my thumbnails and take all my pictures and store and organize those. And here's another one that you might not have heard of. This one is called Drop Sync, okay? What Drop Sync does is it lets you clone one hard drive to another hard drive, and so it'll only sync the changes between the two, so you're not having to wait for like recopying after a whole day's worth of changes. Another app that's great that I will do a video and talk about sometime is NeoFinder. NeoFinder is basically a way to catalog everything that's on a hard drive so that you can search for it when it's not plugged in. So if you put a whole bunch of hard drives like you saw I had there in my closet, I can search for anything that's on those based off of thumbnails, the titles, any of the metadata that's on it, just with this one app. And I think I have, it says, yeah, I've got 46 hard drives in my library right now. And that's just for me personally. For a company, this could be super, super helpful as you go through hundreds or thousands of drives, like if you're a vault manager, that sort of thing. Post Haste is basically a way to make folders as a template so that each time you start a new project, you get like this whole hierarchy of folders, and you can create templates of those. So in here, for my YouTube ones, I have a folder for blog, one for exports, media, and inside media I have A-roll, B-roll, graphics, mix, music, sound effects, of ScreenFlow, and stills, and a thumbnail. So we're gonna get to ScreenFlow next. So ScreenFlow is actually how I do all of my screen recordings on the computer, right? So I talked about this little HDMI deal. This guy right here is amazing because this turns just my laptop into a 16:9 screen, because this is a 4K HDMI dongle that costs 10 bucks. But if I have the opportunity to have an extra monitor that's a 16:9 monitor, I'm gonna use that for recording my screens, and ScreenFlow is how I do that. So anytime, this is my project from last week, anytime I'm doing zooms ins, anytime I'm zooming into the frame or the picture, it's all done within here. So in the keyboard shortcuts that I'm typing that pop up, They're recorded automatically with the software. It's great. It's a little over $100. I'm not sure exactly what the price is now, but you can also record natively with QuickTime Player itself, can do screen recordings. You just don't get all those extra features and the editing piece of it, which is what's in here. So what I did last week, on last week's video, I read the script from the teleprompter, edited it down so that it's nice and concise and short, and then I played back my voice in ScreenFlow while recording me doing the actions over in DaVinci Resolve. So that's how I was able to get it really nice and tight and clean and to the point. So another software that's on here that you might not know about, or if you're a Sony person, you should, is Sony Catalyst Browse. And so Catalyst Browse does one big function for me, and that's it does gyro stabilization, so you can get a really smooth shot with that information rather than doing it optically afterwards. And that's also what the Blackmagic camera is starting to do too, so it's really cool to see that happen. And then we've got Keynote. Apple Keynote is actually how I do a lot of my titles. So you can see this tip 1, tip 2 for like chapter markers and stuff like that. I just do that in Keynote because it centers and aligns things really fast for you. You could obviously use titles in DaVinci Resolve as well. And then finally, the last thing I have open here that a lot of people on the Mac side should be aware of if you're using Adobe Creative Cloud and paying a lot is Affinity Photo. So I do my thumbnails here in Affinity Photo, which basically this is Photoshop, but you only spend $50 like one time and you kind of perpetually own or get to use the software. It's not a monthly payment like with Photoshop and all the Adobe Creative Cloud. I still have to organize them with Lightroom Classic, so if you've got a better solution for organizing and cataloging all your photos, let me know, because I'm still paying $10 a month for the Lightroom bundle for photographers. So, and then finally, I want to show you, I actually have another closet around the corner here in the basement where I have a few other things that just don't fit in that room. So let me flick this light on. Oh, one of those being, every YouTuber has a Red Bull fridge. I don't know if you get that at a certain subscriber point, but I just have like a home fridge and that works fine. And my drink of choice is Premier Protein because, you know, you gotta have your protein. We are getting all cleared out for the move, but I typically will use about half of this room here to store other things. And I've got light stands down here. These are little bags for the soft boxes. I'm definitely making a video about this in the future. This is the Unify, it's called the Dream Machine Special Edition. So inside of here, I can't wait to open it. We're gonna do that in New York. But this is basically an all-in-one networking device for the house. Everyone needs one of these. My buddy Todd Van Fleet led me onto these DeWalt cases for all the little tiny doodads you need for filmmaking. So this is normally for tools, right? You put nails and stuff. But, you know, a lot of times you need like one of these things to hook into like an extra piece of grip gear, you know, all this stuff. These hold cell phones or, you know, battery banks, that sort of thing. And then that way you can kind of keep it organized. And because it's not filmmaking gear, it's not super expensive. These are like 20 bucks at Home Depot. I use this guy to hold my speed editor. I've got a whole video on that. So when I take the speed editor around, it doesn't get dinged up at all. This is actually made for the Sony FX3. It's a porta-brace case, right? So it's super rigid. One thing I love about it, it's got the top access for it. Right now it's just full of a bunch of crap because I'm in the middle of moving, but you could put a fully rigged out FX3 in here with the top handle and all that, and it's ready to go. And so that is my shoulder bag that I use for when I'm gonna go around, and I just need to pull it out and fully rigged up rather than a backpack. I'm not huge into gimbal stuff on the channel, but the Ronin S is in this here case, which these cases kind of suck, but the Ronin is great for stabilized footage. And then another thing about sound is I actually have these sound panels you've probably seen in the back of my videos. I didn't actually have to buy them. They came from the last job I had. They were an over purchase, like mistaken order, and because they cost so much to ship, I just inherited them for free from my producer, which was awesome. But they're 4 feet by 2 feet. Hopefully you'll see these in the new house, the new studio. But what these do is they help minimize the reflections in the room. And so inside, there's like stuff on the inside that sucks the sound out, and there's like a nice wood backing to them, and they just have these clips right here. And yeah, there's 4 of them, so I'm gonna start hauling them out of here. But to transport them, I actually got, if you're ever moving a TV and you're concerned about throwing away your TV box, which if you have a thin OLED, never throw that away. I kept it from my 65-inch OLED that's out here. But for these sound panels, I'm actually using from Amazon. They have these boxes. You can get 4 of them for 40 bucks, so like $10 a piece. and they should fit these sound panels just right. I'm hoping that they're long enough. We'll find out as I start to, oh yeah. That's like a perfect fit. So I'll wrap it up so it doesn't get dirty, but yeah, having sound panels is really helpful. You can probably already hear as I've taken those off now, my voice, I can hear it's bouncing more than I'm used to for sure. So anyways, if you stuck around this long, you're like a true Creative Video Tips super fan, and I appreciate you so much. If there's anything that you saw in the video and want to know more about, let me know in the comments, and I'll get back to you on that. And also, if you buy anything, try using an affiliate link. That would help out the channel a ton. I'm moving to New York. I'm moving from my past job, which ended yesterday at Flatirons Community Church, and I'm starting a new job at a really high-end commercial post-production house that is focused on using DaVinci Resolve. So there's a lot more DaVinci Resolve stuff coming in the future, so stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for watching.